Hal, welcome to About Progress.
It is such a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I'm going to try not to fangirl the whole time. I'm just trying to calm myself down. How's a real person? How my pal?
Yeah, and my
So,
wife and my daughter will tell you I'm not just a real person. I'm a dork. Like whenever my wife's or my daughter are out and like somebody meets me, like, oh, Hal Elrod's there. My daughter just rolls her eyes. She's like, if you only knew, he is not as cool as you think he is. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
well, that makes me so happy. So many women will think like miracle morning and think, well, that's not possible for me. I've got kids or I've got a job I've got to be at early. I've got all these obstacles in the way. And we want to make this both attainable for them and doable, but also still that miracle piece of it. But let's go
Mm,
back a little bit
okay.
and tell us how you discovered the miracle of having your own solid morning routine.
Yeah, it was unexpected and it was organic, you could say. I didn't plan on writing a book, none of that. And it was back in 2008. I was a coach. I had built a relatively successful like personal coaching. I would do in life coaching, a lot of business and sales coaching. And in 2007, 2008, when the economy started to crash, our last great recession,
Hmm.
I was kind of just delusional. Like I'm such an optimist. I always say there's a fine line between optimism and delusion, and I cross it often. But my friends and colleagues like, oh, are you worried about the recession that's coming? And I was, I don't worry about the recession. I don't watch the news. I don't pay attention. I don't worry myself with that. I create my own economy and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And there's some truth to that, but there's also a fallacy. And
Yeah.
because I wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden I lost over. I mean, it was really in a matter of months. I lost over half of my coaching clients because they were affected by the economy,
Mm.
and therefore I lost over half of my income, and I could not pay the mortgage, and I couldn't pay my bills, and I started living on credit cards, and I got depressed, and I canceled the gym membership, and it was really mentally, emotionally, especially financially, which was the catalyst for the mental and emotional decline. But I was really at one of the major rock bottoms in my life, and a friend of mine, I finally confessed how low I had gotten, and I'd kind of kept it a secret because I was a success coach, so I
Mm.
felt like just a fraud, and like,
Hmm.
I'm like, how am I going to get coaching clients when I can't even succeed myself, And this friend, I finally confessed how bad it had gotten, and I said, "Man, I need help. I don't know what to do. Like, we're about to move back in with my dad. Thankfully, he's going to give us a place to live, but my house is being foreclosed on. I'm drowning in debt." And he said, "You should listen to this Jim Rohn audio." And I go, "That's it? You're going to just send me to listen to an audio?" And he said, "I'm telling you, listen to this, apply this, call me back." And so Jim Rohn said this quote that really became the catalyst for the miracle morning. Jim Rohn said, "Your level of success," and this is in every area of life. So your health, your as a parent, right? Your level of success in every area will seldom exceed your level of personal development. And in that moment, I quantified it. I went, okay, wait a minute. On a scale of 1 to 10, I want level 10 success in every area of my life. I think that's human nature. Then I asked myself, what's my level of personal development? Like on a day-to-day basis, how focused and dedicated am I to my personal development? And at that time in my life, the answer was like, I'm a 2, like maybe a 3 or a 4 on a good day.
Mm.
And I realized that I believe that's the disconnect for the majority of society, is that every human being, there's this innate drive and desire to experience level 10 success and fulfillment in every area of life. Yet most people are struggling in one, if not multiple areas of life. And I believe the disconnect is that very few people have a daily, disciplined, proven personal development ritual that is very strategic and intentional for them to become the level 10 version of themselves that enables us to create the level 10 life that we want. And so I ran home and I go, okay, I was on a run at this time. And I said, I've got to go research what do the world's most successful people do across all walks of life for their personal development rituals. I want to study what the world's most successful people do. And then I want to figure out the most effective personal development ritual. And I ran home and I Googled, world's most successful people and what do they do for personal development and just different phrases I could think of. And I ended up with a list of 6 practices. It was meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling, or what I call scribing. And I thought, I can't do all of these. Which one's the best? Which one's the most effective? And I keep going through these articles I'm reading, and none stood above the rest. It just depended on who you asked. And I almost threw in the towel because I was overwhelmed. And I thought, well, I can't do all of these. So I don't know which one's the best. Like, it's just hopeless. And then I had an epiphany. I went, wait a minute. What if I woke up 30 to 60 minutes earlier tomorrow, even though I wasn't a morning person, like not even close? But I thought, if I want my life to be different, I got to be willing to do something different first. So what if I woke up 30 to 60 minutes earlier tomorrow and I did all 6 practices, not just 1 or 2, but I literally did the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in the history of humanity that the world's most successful people had sworn by for centuries. I thought that would be the ultimate personal development ritual. And that night I Googled, how do you meditate? Because I really wasn't proficient in any of these. How do you do affirmations? How do you visualize, right? And the next morning I wake up, and for the first time in 6 months, where I'd been depressed for 6 months, I was excited. I felt like a kid on Christmas morning, like this could be the one thing that changes everything. And I went through all 6 practices. I was pretty subpar at all of, or most of them. But even after that hour, I felt like this is it. If I do this every day and start the day with this much energy and clarity and motivation and learning something that I can apply to my life, my business, it's only a matter of time before I turn my life around. And I was thinking, Monica, like maybe 1 year, 1% better every day, the compound effect. Eventually I'll get there. It happened so fast. In less than 2 months, in a declining economy, the Great Recession, I more than doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically to committing to run a 52-mile ultra marathon because I hated running. And I thought that would be the ultimate way to become the level 10 version of myself, would be to commit to something that was so far outside of what I believed I could do, and then just commit and figure out how to do it. And my depression didn't take 2 months to go away. That started fading after day 1, because when you feel hopeless and overwhelmed, that's depressing. As soon as you have hope and clarity, that is inspiring, that is empowering. And that very first day, when I realized if I do this every day, it's only a matter of time. And I'll wrap a bow on the story where I met my wife in the hallway. I can picture the moment. She was coming out of the bedroom, and I had just signed on 2 coaching clients that day, and I ran to find her. And she was coming out of the bedroom, and I said, sweetheart, this morning routine is like a miracle. And she goes, it's your miracle morning. And I go, I like that. I love miracle morning. So I started writing that every day in my schedule. Then I taught it to all my coaching clients. And long story short, most of them resisted. I'm not a morning person. I said, neither was I. Here's some tips. Here's how you beat the snooze button. Here's what I did. And 13 out of 14 clients came to the next call and said, oh my gosh, it's transforming my life. And that's when I went, okay, if the miracle morning changed my life and I wasn't a morning person, it changed 13 out of 14 of my coaching clients' lives. And this is in the middle of the worst recession of my lifetime. Like when we should all be struggling like the majority of society, I thought I have a responsibility to share this miracle morning message with the world. And then I started writing the book, and, it took 3 years, and I self-published it. And now it's, 2 million copies in 37 languages and things I never, ever, ever imagined, but it has now become my life's work.
I have read your book that's now gone on to become an international bestseller. And your story is why what you have to share has such an impact on me, even down to you saying it took 3 years to write that book. I think it's so easy to just gloss over how long it might take for someone to get to where they are. And that even includes your miracle morning. For you, it was a little bit more, I wouldn't say instantaneous. It clearly took work, and I'm sure you had your ups and downs. But maybe you can level with people who are already thinking this isn't for me. Maybe not even because they're not morning people technically, but more because they're like, I don't have that amount of time. Like I don't even have an hour.
Yeah.
What would you say to them in terms of, is this even possible?
Yeah. So there's a few answers to this question. And the first, let's handle I'm not a morning person, and I've never been a morning person, and I don't want to become a morning person. I was asked in an interview a couple of years ago, they said, actually it was probably 5 years ago now. They said, Hal, what percentage of these, miracle morning practitioners around the world, which, is around 1 million to, or more, what percentage of them were already morning people when they read the book? So this was easy transition for them. It was like, oh, okay, instead of checking the email in the morning, I'll do the 6 miracle morning practices. And then they said, and what percentage had never been a morning person? So this was like a major shift in their identity and overcoming like maybe a lifelong limiting belief. I didn't know the answer. So ever since then, we survey the miracle morning community consistently. It's hundreds of thousands of people that we have communication with. And it is roughly, on average, it's 72% of miracle morning practitioners who swear by the practice, said that they had never in their life been a morning person until they read the book. And I really wrote it with that intention. Every page, every word, I was like, how am I going to get somebody from I'm not a morning person to this is a part of my life now? And that was like, every word, it was like, how do I hold people's hand to get to that place? So that's the first thing. So if you're not a morning person, join the club. Neither was I, neither are most miracle morning practitioners. Second thing, I don't have enough time. We all go to bed at a certain time. We wake up at a certain time, right? And for the majority of us, we could go to bed 15 minutes earlier to wake up 15 minutes earlier. And for most of us, and I don't want to assume because everyone has different schedules. I mean, a lot of times email me, go, I have a newborn, right? How do I do the miracle morning? Or I work the night shift. How to do the miracle morning, right? And there's solutions. It's very customized. But going to bed 15 minutes earlier, most of us, it's that last 15 minutes of the night or 30 minutes or an hour, whatever someone is doing before bed. It's usually, we're staying up late at night, and that's not the most productive use of our time. Because at the end of the day, you're mentally fatigued, you're physically fatigued, right? You're usually not at your best. And so the idea of trading in a little bit of time in the evening for time in the morning that can literally transform your life. And I think it's important to say why the miracle morning. It's because how you start your day sets the tone, the context, and the direction for the rest of your day. If you are like most of us, and like I used to be, and most of us are, where you set your alarm for the last possible second I can get out of bed and not have things fall apart. I often joke that I call that a mediocre morning. But we're starting the day not proactively, but reactively versus waking up, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes earlier. The average person does a 30-minute miracle morning. And then, that's about 50%. Another 30% do an hour-long miracle morning, and the next 20% is anywhere in between or less. But to start your day in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state enables you to show up at your best for those you love, for those you lead, and first and foremost for yourself. And so the idea of trading in a little time in the evening for that highly productive time in the morning, it's worth giving it a shot. I'm holding the updated and expanded edition of the Miracle Morning, the new book that's coming out. And
so exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited. This is so common. This is from this woman, 3 years practicing the Miracle Morning, Jane Bavarova. She says, the Miracle Morning has changed my life completely. I hated mornings, and the word hated is in all capital letters. It was the worst part of the day. Yeah, it was the worst part of the day for me. Then my sister told me about this book, and I knew it was my chance to change everything. So I completed the 30-day challenge, and here I am, happy in the mornings, super efficient, positive, and satisfied with nearly all aspects of my life. And I feel like that's a very common, email or review on Amazon for the book, right? I was not a morning person. I hated mornings, and now it's the best part of my day. And I always say that if another human being has overcome or accomplished something, I think one of the most important beliefs that we can uphold is, oh, I can do it too. That's evidence of what's possible for me. If another human can do something, that is evidence of what's possible for all of us.
I think especially when you do have permission to customize what your miracle morning can look like.
Yeah.
A lot of times us as recovering perfectionists, we often think like, just tell me how to do something and I'll do it. Like, give me the prescription.
Yeah.
But the prescription doesn't line up with our reality.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we've twisted it around. We've started with a prescribed ideal instead of our own ideal, one that's customized to our lives. So with that in mind, I would love for you to just give some suggestions on how listeners can come up with their own miracle morning and what kind of elements you would suggest that entails if it's right for them. And not even if it's right. I mean, because sometimes it's like, take a leap here and try this one.
Yeah.
But let's start with the whole customizable piece.
So to give a little bit of a framework for everyone to follow along and make this easier to grasp in your mind as you're listening, the 6 practices that make up the Miracle Morning are now organized into an acronym that is the Life Savers. The acronym is SAVERS, SAVERS. And a quick context, I was writing the book one day, and again, I can picture this moment as well. My wife is my muse. I'm very clear on that. She gives me all the ideas, or she's the spark. But I was writing the book and I was frustrated, and I just was walking out of the bedroom to go to the kitchen and get a drink of water. And she sees me and she goes, "What's wrong? You look frazzled." And I said, I have these 6 practices, but I didn't invent any of them. None of them they're not new. These have been around for thousands of years. I'm like, and I need some way to connect them. So there's some sort of cohesion. Robert Kiyosaki has the cash flow quadrant, and Stephen Covey's got the 7 habits. I'm like, I don't know how to get these, tied together. She goes, why don't you get a thesaurus and see if you can find synonyms for any of the words and then organize them into an acronym? And so meditation became silence.
Mm-hmm.
Affirmations remain the same. V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading. So that all stayed the same. And then journaling became scribing, which is a fancy word for writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 6 practices of the miracle morning. So SAVERS. So in terms of, to answer your question, how to customize this, I usually recommend when somebody starts their miracle morning, just wake up 10 minutes earlier and do one of the savers. That way it doesn't feel overwhelming. It doesn't feel like it's all or nothing. And you're going to get a taste of, oh, wow, that feels really good to start my day with purpose and intention and a little personal development. And many people listening probably already do this. So you might just take it to the next level where you're at it. You do 2. But for many people, they just do the R in savers, which is for reading, right? So, I mean, pretty easy. You wake up 10 minutes earlier, right? Rub your eyes, go into the other room so you don't fall back asleep on the bed. And then you start reading. And then when, in a few days, you'll get to the chapter on affirmations. And now you're starting to develop a little bit of a habit. All right, I'm getting up 10 minutes earlier than I have to be up. I'm doing some personal development. I'm reading, right? Then you get to the chapter on affirmations and you fold that into your next miracle morning. So the next day you do reading and affirmations, right? You could either do 5 minutes each or you can make it a little longer. And now wow, this is empowering. And then the next day, you get to the chapter on visualization and you add that in. And so you build your miracle morning gradually over time. Now, there's a chapter in the Miracle Morning book called the 6-Minute Miracle Morning. And this is not like some gimmicky thing. It was literally something where one morning I had like 15 minutes before I had to leave. And I liked doing a 1-hour miracle morning. I was all in. And so this is probably a few months into my miracle morning. And I have the same all or nothing mentality most of us do, right? It's human nature. You're like, I can't do the full hour, so I'm just not going to do it. And then I just had this like voice in my head. It was like, well, why make it all or nothing? Why don't you just go do a 10-minute miracle morning? And so then I was like, well, I'll do like roughly 6 minutes. I'll just do 1 minute for each of the savers. And I set my timer so I set everything out. I took 4 minutes basically of those 10 minutes setting everything out. I had my affirmations set out. I had my book set out. And I set the timer for 60 seconds and I just prayed and I meditated. And I was just quiet and just calm my nervous system and just felt peaceful for a minute. And the timer went off and I snoozed and did it again. And I pulled out my affirmations and I read my affirmations. That the way I teach affirmations in the book, by the way, it's worth mentioning, are very different than the way that most of us have learned them. Most of us have learned like either lie to yourself. If you want to be wealthy, just tell yourself you're wealthy. I am wealthy. Right. But if that's not true for you, then you're creating an internal conflict and that can be counterproductive. The other way we're taught affirmations is like use this passive flowery language that makes you feel better in the moment, but doesn't actually do anything. So there's a very popular affirmation. I am a money magnet. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance, right? Like that might make you feel better, but you're just deluding yourself into thinking that everything's magically going to solve itself independent of your effort. So the way to teach affirmations in the book are step 1, affirm what you're committed to. Step 2, affirm why it's a must for you. And step 3, affirm which specific actions you'll take and when. So now your affirmations are rooted in truth. They are practical, they are actionable, and they are literally designed to direct your thoughts and your behavior to be in alignment with what you need to do to achieve what you want in your life. So back to the 6-minute miracle morning. Sorry, I'm going fast, but you go to your affirmations for 1 minute. And then I did my visualization for a minute. I did 60 seconds of jumping jacks. I read a page out of the book I was reading. I learned something new. I journaled what I was grateful for. 6 minutes go by and I'm like, wow, that's amazing how much I just got done in those 6 minutes and how good I feel. It's almost like it was 1/10 of the time that I was used to, but I got like 80% of the benefit, give or take.
Amazing.
And I thought there aren't too many things that you could do 10% of the time frame, right, and get 80% of the benefit. But I felt calm and clear and so on and so forth. And so, but yeah, your miracle morning, there's an entire chapter in the book called Customizing the Miracle Morning to Fit Your Lifestyle. And that's where I give real life examples of, mothers with newborns, of nurses that work the night shift, of, right, like all these different people, all different lifestyles, and how you can customize the savers, to work for you.
Thank you for being willing to go there, especially because A lot of times the prescriptions are exciting and they're easy to talk about because you know what the effect is of those, and clearly do millions of people who
Yeah.
have benefited from your work. But I love knowing that there's hope if I can only start with one, and if I can only start 5 or 10 minutes earlier than I typically do. And I want to speak to one more obstacle that
Mm.
a lot of my listeners face. And I'll just share this personally, this quick anecdote. I actually have, well, I guess he's not a newborn anymore. I have 5 kids, but I've got an 8-month old.
Okay.
And it was 5 years after our last child. So this has been a huge adjustment for me. And
Wow.
I've been
Yeah.
gradually working back to waking up earlier. And I was so proud of myself because I woke up at 5:30 today. But
Mm.
then he was up at 6:30 before, only gotten partway through my workout and had started to make breakfast for the kids. And I was like, dang it. It
Yeah.
kind of feels like not like all is lost, but
Yeah.
there's just this frustration that is pretty unique when you kind of can't predict the interruptions you're going to have. So, any tips you have for our listeners in particular who deal with more unpredictable schedules or interruptions that they can't necessarily say, like, go live somewhere else?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
have
and I
someone
can
else
I
take
can
care of
relate
you.
to the frustration when my kids wake up earlier than I was expecting. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not done with my miracle morning." "Hey, you wanna join me, sweetie?" It's like anything in life. When we focus on that which is out of our control, we feel out of control,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't serve us. And so I think it's, one of the philosophies I live by is accept life before it happens. Meaning lots of challenges are ahead of us. That's just life. Life includes struggle. Life includes adversity. When I was 20 years old, I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour, and I was found dead at the scene. My heart stopped for 6 minutes. I broke 11 bones, and I came out of a coma 6 days later to be told I would never walk again. And that was actually when I decided this. I realized, okay, I can't change that I was in a car accident, and if the doctors are right, I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life. I can't change that, but I can choose to be at peace. I can
Mm-hmm.
choose how I feel inside. I can choose, and specifically, it was I'm choosing to be the happiest, most grateful that I have ever been while I endure the most difficult time in my life. Now, I realize that's an extreme example, but 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare aggressive form of cancer. And again, this is another extreme example, but I'm tying this all together. And I was given a 20 to 30% chance of living. Now, it was much harder for me to deal with in the car accident because now I had a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son to consider. But the day that I was diagnosed, I had already accepted it. It's this philosophy of I just practiced accepting life before it happened. So no matter what happened in my life, I've decided I only have two choices. I can either resist reality and wish it were different and cause myself emotional pain, right? Or
Yeah.
I can accept reality exactly as it is. And it doesn't mean I'm happy about it, but I'm at peace with it, which to me is far more powerful because peace is more a state of mind than an emotion, right? You can be happy one minute and then you get bad news and now you're distraught, you're upset, you're angry. But when you just live your life in a state of acceptance where you accept life as it is, you accept life before it happens, then you are it's a state of peace with
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens or doesn't happen. And so again, those are extreme examples, but that's just and that should be part of your affirmations, right? Like I accept life before it happens. No matter what happens, I'm choosing to be at peace with it because what's a better choice than that, right? Being upset, angry, distraught? No. And so for me, when I get interrupted, it's just a matter of I'm at peace with it. I'm going to flow with it. And logistically, I think one of the most when you have young kids that wake up early, the miracle morning is arguably even more important. I've had that's kind of the answer where when a parent of a newborn says, "How do I do the miracle morning?" I barely get enough sleep as it is. I'm up all night. I'm and right. And, the answer, and not from me, the answer from other mothers or fathers, but usually mothers who went through having a newborn and doing the miracle morning, is they say, "Do your savers while you have the newborn and the sleep is completely sporadic and unpredictable, do your savers while your child is napping, while your baby is napping." And, that might mean you only do, you do silence and affirmations during the first nap and then you join the nap yourself, right? But it's like you just do the best that you can with what you have. And so it goes back to give up being perfect for being authentic, right? Authentic with
Yeah.
this is where I'm at in my life and I can enjoy it or I can be frustrated by it. That is my choice. And I might as well enjoy, the interruption, right? Embrace, oh, you came in when I didn't think you were going to.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. How blessed I am to have you as my child. Let's make the best of this.
I'm so appreciative of you modeling the flexibility that can happen in just a typical day to day, but also the bigger life things. I mean, you kept saying those are extreme examples, but they're also real and they're
Mm,
what you went through. And even if it's different for someone else, maybe a season of heavy depression or another health need or something happening financially in their families, those are going to come too, those more
yeah,
extreme times. And so just being able to one, accept what life can hand to you, but the flexibility even in those bigger moments and day to day to me matters so much. And I would add one thing that has helped me too is all of your savers. I love them each. I have never been able to fully do them all before my family wakes up, and that's okay, but
oh
I
yeah,
still
sure,
have them a part of my life, and sometimes you can combine them. Like, exercise for me is both my silence, my meditative time, and my affirmation time, and if I know I can at least have 10 minutes of moving my body and that with that mindset, it helps everything else, even if that's all I can do.
yeah.
So thank you for that. Hal, we're going to wrap up our time here because you are such a champ to make time for this podcast. But I want to make sure we know a little bit more about the most updated and expanded version of the Miracle Morning and how it's coming about. And I just wanted to know, how has this little book that could
Uh,
surprised you?
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's. I mean, I'm smiling when you ask that because I never imagined. I shouldn't say I never imagined. I did think, okay, wait a minute. This changes the lives of every person I share it with. So, I mean, this could change the world. This could, I mean, in fact, the
Mm-hmm.
mission of the Miracle Morning is to elevate the consciousness of humanity one morning at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a very grandiose mission, but that came later. It wasn't the original mission. It came later after paying attention that what happens is when we do a Miracle Morning, we elevate our own consciousness. And the way I define that is we become more aware and intentional about how our thoughts, our words, and our actions impact ourselves and everyone around us. And being more aware and intentional of that is elevating our consciousness. We're becoming more conscious, more intentional, more aware. And so, yeah, so I, I never, I don't think I ever would have bet on like, oh yeah, this is going to reach millions of people, right? Like I was
Mm-hmm.
more the insecure author, like who's going to read this and how am I going to convince them to wake up early, so it really is special. And the last thing I'll share on that is in 2016, I wrote the Miracle Morning 10-year vision. The book had been out for 4 years at that point, and I wrote the 10-year vision. And it was just me dreaming. I think I was at an event, and that was like the assignment, right? And I thought, one of the things I wrote down is within 10 years, every school in America every student begins their day and every teacher with the Miracle Morning in the classroom. And as a result, bullying is being eradicated and detention numbers are being minimized. Right. So I wrote these bullet points of what that would look like. And then I kind of put it away. And this is, I guess, speaking of manifesting, but somebody on my team a couple years ago met a principal who had rolled the Miracle Morning out at her school. And she went from being one of the worst in their district for detention to one of the best in a matter of months.
Mm-hmm.
And she had then shared it with schools in her district. Long story short, now the Miracle Morning is practiced by thousands of students across the country and more and more and more every day. So that's been one of the most beautiful, exciting turn of events. But yeah, and then also like when I go overseas and I meet people in Korea or New York or France, and they're saying how this Miracle Morning changed their life, and it's not even in like their native tongue, and it's all kind of surreal, but I'm just committed to keep sharing it with as many people as I can. So I'm so grateful, Monica, that you gave me this opportunity to share it with your audience, and I hope you all read the book, miraclemorningbook.com, and join the community, and may it bless your life.
Oh, thank you, Hal. And I would just say, I said earlier, part of why I connect so much to your work is because of the realness behind it, but also just how it's not about you. Even
Mm,
if you
mm,
share your own personal anecdotes, it's not about you, and that's
no.
actually pretty rare out there, especially in the personal development field. Which is weird. You would think people would make it all about the people they're trying to help, but it tends to be the other way around, and that's not you. So I am so appreciative of your work. We'll make sure we link to all things Hal, including your podcast, your book, anywhere else on social media that you are. We always end with one final question, and it's, what is one small way listeners can take action on what they learned today?
I love that. It is set your alarm clock 10 to 15 minutes earlier. And if you want to be ambitious and do like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that, you can. But start small and commit to wake up tomorrow. And let me give you an important tip: keep your alarm clock as far away from you as possible.
Yeah.
So it's one of the biggest, this is one of the most effective strategies in the Miracle Morning book. I've been told that by really successful people that are like, if it wasn't for moving the alarm clock across the room, I'd still be reaching over to my bedside table and snoozing without even realizing it because I'm half asleep. When you
And
have to
it's
get
usually the phone, right? So charge your phone across
exactly
the room.
charge your phone.
Yes.
So for me, it was always, I keep it on the bathroom sink, and then that way with a glass
Mhm.
of water. So I get up, I turn the phone off. It's think about that. It is infinitely easier to stay awake when you're already upright and out of bed and you've walked across the room than it is if your arm is reaching over and that's your decision point. And so first thing in the morning, walk across the room, get out of bed, hydrate, drink a glass of water, right? Because we're dehydrated overnight by default because we're not drinking water for 6, 7, 8 hours. Plus, we're perspiring and expelling breath and so on and so forth. So, yeah, so set your alarm clock 10 minutes earlier, move it across the room, and then do one of the savers: silence, prayer, meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing.
Brilliant. Well, Hal, this is definitely going to go down in the books and a personal honor. Thank you for making
Oh,
the time.
thank you, Monica. It's been an honor. And thank you to everybody that listened.
Okay, I'll stop the recording